Hello and welcome to Digital Senate Summit 2021. I am Ankush Kumar, editor of Tech Observer magazine. In this special panel discussion focused on data-driven governance in Normal, we will try to understand how public sector technology leaders are using data to mitigate the challenge of pandemic and what are their strategies to analyze data for improving public policy making. To lead the discussion, I'm joined by Mr. Aniruddha Shahpure, Chief Knowledge Officer, Pune Smart City Development Corporation, Mr. Prem Kumar Jha, Chief General Manager, Information Technology, Steel Authority of India, Government of India, Dr. R. Harshvardhan, Head and Director, Hospital Administration, SGPGI, Lucknow, Dr. Avik Sarkar, Associate Professor, Data, Technology and Public Policy, Indian School of Business, Mr. Prashant Momaya, Director, Solution Engineering, Tableau Software. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this special panel discussion. I would like to begin with Mr. Aniruddha Shahpure. As we are still in the midst of COVID, so could you give us a sense of what have been the key lessons from pandemic for government technology leaders like you?
Hi, good afternoon to you all. Thank you, Tech Observer, having me on this session, and hello all panelists. So, pandemic, absolutely, it is unprecedented situation what we have faced for a long time. Never rather. Pune Smart City, actively, Pune Smart City is actively involved into pandemic operations, the COVID operations, and I would like to say here that we are proud that Smart City Command Control Center has been used as a war room against all the operations, conducting all the operations. So within 36 hours, we have established around 40 computers complete with ready data and networking done, and about 24 IP phone lines for contact tracing. So this is like, it's an initiative which already been implemented as an integrated command control center for the city. However, with a short time, we can convert it into a war room. So these are the specific things which always work as in technology, and these are the latest technologies which every city has to have. I mean, now when 100 cities have been selected from India, so every city is going to have this kind of command control center. So by the grace of God, we should not face any situations like this in future. However, we should be ready for anything. I mean, this particular command control center, we have actually streamlined data exchange processes, where all the ward offices, all the districts of Pune, and the hospitals and ward of the officers, the workers, those who are already on the ground, have been connected to this particular command control center. Then we have developed one with the gathering all the data. We have processed it, we have sanitized it, and then we have prepared a enterprise dashboard where everything was visible. Obviously, the measurement which has done, so we can always take an action. So we have prepared a GIS-based tracking, heat mapping. We have used heat mapping for pinpointing the locations where actually the data visualization, which was properly happened there. So the actions against the spread or the reactions to the arresting the pandemic was taken very prominently. Then we have developed one application mobile application rather, which is called Arogya Dheer. Similar solution as in telemedicine, which was done within 17 days, and it was implemented and put up to the all the COVID positive patients to actually follow up them from the doctors. We have had help from the doctors from the Pune corporation, also the local doctors, the private practitioners also. So technology is definitely helped in a way, and rather it is in the application. So it's a better thing, and we have learned a lot with this pandemic to for the better future actually. Thank you.
Sure enough. I will definitely come back to you, sir. Thank you for sharing your experiences and how you have used Command Control Center for data visualization and the new mobile application for telemedicine services and tracking the right patients. And I would now like to come to take the same question to other panelists. If you could share, any one of you could share your experiences, how modern day technologies we have used in tackling some of the situations in the COVID time. Sir, any of you, Mr. Sarkar or Mr. Harshvardhan or Mr. Jha?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Ankush. This is a very, very pertinent topic we are talking about, and we are still not out of this COVID scenarios. As Prashant has stated that he had taken a number of steps in his organization. Similar, I think all organizations had to do something or other to meet the challenge faced by from COVID. The challenges, definitely this adversity and challenge has given opportunities also at the same time to develop and cater to your requirement. Rather, it is, the Atmanirbhar Bharat has come later on, but I think that started from that point itself, that how you depend on yourself. Because a lot of disruption was from supply side, demand side, and our industry, like steel making industries or continuous industry, you cannot put it down overnight. If your blast furnace is chilled, it will take months to recover, and you cannot. And this 24/7 it has to be manned, and a lot of levers are there which has to come to duty on a regular basis. So now the challenge that you have to have this social distancing and PPE and all those things in place, and suddenly then to manage all those resources, you need IT immediately. Otherwise, it is difficult. Another part was like, and in a large industry, a lot of approval scenarios where note sheets and the papers movements are there. And without movement in PSUs, you cannot do things on your own. So, I mean, and the question was that if you move papers, then paper is a carrier of COVID itself. So then we had to immediately move to our e-module in a e-approval module. And that has wonderfully been developed in SAP. And, there you can put your, wherever you are putting your approval, it will reach to the persons in a designed manner. And nobody else will be able to see that confidentiality is ensured, and attachments can be put by anybody in the pipeline at any point of time. So that has basically boon in disguise, because people earlier that approval used to take days, now it was taking minutes or hours. So that was very fast. Then taking this problem to our supply side, the inputs to different stakeholders in different states, and to convince them this is essential services, and with the government liberty given to us that the transport has to happen, all this thing has to happen. There also technology we have used, and it has been a great help to us. So in between, and then work from home, enabling people to work from home. That was another challenge. Earlier, we used to have a timekeeping that one has to come and punch that time taking was important. Now, time was not important. productivity was important, output was important, but from where people work doesn't matter at all. So, this disruption was really a challenge, and we have learned a lot of things to stand in face of such challenges with a complex industry like ours, which integrated industry, where you have not only steel, you have chemicals to handle, you have power to handle, you have
Absolutely.
a lot of things.
So, yeah. So in a plant, sir, it's a different scenario. There are multiple sensors. A lot of bandwidth requirement is the need of the hour. So as the government is collecting large amount of data with the help of various digital platforms, in your views as to how the government can store, process, and analyze data in such a way that it enables the government department or government organizations like yours in improving their policy making and ultimately citizen service delivery. So if you can throw some light on that.
Yeah, it's really very pertinent. In India, like such a diverse country where different type of needs are there, and the data is the crux of the matter. With the data, if you have sufficient data and you analyze it properly, put into different categories, that can help you to take the decision and proper perspective. And the review and data, but the challenge is that how do you get the data? So now data is available from two sources. That one is active sources, that people who are already in digital platform, they are working, and that can be, they can share data, or you can take data from there. There are some passive sources where like your wind, water, energy, sunlight, your blood, and all sort of things, and soil condition, education, healthcare services, transport, and all these things, which are where people, you have to take data from the system itself, from the environment. So that is another challenge, that how you take this data. Now, what I feel that this data can be gathered if you assign people with such tasks, like we had earlier. In village there is Gram Sevak. Now there has to be data volunteers. They have to. You have to say that what sort of data is required for things. People are having now smart mobile phone is very easily available to everybody, and data cost of data is very, very less. Communication and other things in India. This is enabler. I think the government can make some apps, or can give some sort of incentive that based on data given by some people, if that is useful, and it can be they can get some incentive, that some points which can be further encashed in some manner, or some sort of leverage can be given. So there is a huge amount of potential in India. The young crowd is our big asset. From that, data can be taken, and again we have got AI, artificial intelligence, and data analytics around. Cloud computing is there, your grid computing is there, your the 5G is around. So enabler things are there. Only thing, we have to design our requirement. What sort of data we require? Because huge data is available all around. Now we have to make it categorized, and then plan accordingly so that we can use it usefully.
Fair enough. It is really important, as you rightly said, it is important for us, all of us, to design our requirements and assign people with a specific task when it comes to data. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Sarkar. Sir, you have been formally associated with NITI Aayog as head of data analytics cell. So you were more onto the policy framing front, and could you throw more light on the policy making and the impact of data on citizen service delivery, and what are the new trends that are there in the industry as of now?
Yes, so thanks Ankush for inviting me. This is a very pertinent and timely discussion on this topic. So as we talk about the pandemic and also the government, there's already a lot of data that the government collects. Government and private parties both collect on a daily basis. This can be a lot of high frequency data, like any transaction that we are doing. There is some data being generated, like it can be telecom transaction, retail transaction. So there are a large majority of them are with the private players, so we do not have access to them. But whatever data that government collects, a large majority of this data is in public domain. So when the COVID hit last year, and there was an active discussion around the economic recovery, we at ISB came out with a portal, India Data Portal, where we have a section called Jumpstart India, which looks at the economic recovery based on data that the government of India shares on a daily and monthly basis in the open domain. So this can be like, say, every day fertilizer sales, the amount of fertilizer sales that is happening through POS machines. This data is there in the open domain every day. You might get it after 2 or 3 days lag, so that is there, but you get it in the open domain. The agriculture transactions, the mandi transactions that are happening every day are all in public domain. That what was the amount of vegetables that was traded in a particular mandi, what vegetables went up during the COVID time, what went down, and a lot of other interesting things. On a monthly level also, we have a range of parameters that are there. Like, say, we are tracking the number of companies being registered. We have been tracking that, and these are very good indicators of the economic activity. The number of car registration happening. These are not any confidential data, and we are looking at only aggregate number, like how many car registrations are happening in a particular state, in a particular district, and this is made available by Government of India. But you can analyze this data and get a very real-time view on how your economy is progressing. So we see like states like Maharashtra and Karnataka are the foremost leaders in the registration of new companies. And then we see that during the time of the COVID in April and May, they actually went down. But by the time August came back, they were actually back to the 2019 number, the levels at which the 2019 numbers are. So it did come down, but then the number of company registrations. So we have about 30 indicators on our portal. If you go to India data portal, you will find all these 30 indicators. I'm just telling you about one. So you can look into each sector of your importance. Even like a very interesting thing, the electricity consumption is a data that is available from the grid on a daily basis. So you can get this data, how much is each city consuming electricity. You can get it on a daily basis. Air quality, you can see like there are certain amount of pollution which comes down because economy was down, the cars are not going out, but there are certain other aspects of the pollution and air quality which doesn't go down, even though if cars are not happening them. So these are a lot of data that we get in the open domain. We have to so when people are using them, maybe in decision-making position, they have to have a habit of analyzing this data and then making their decision rather than doing it on an ad hoc basis. I think when I was at Niti Aayog, my work, not only my work, I think whole Niti Aayog agenda has been to look at more evidence-based policy making, and that will also lead to making maybe a ton of indices. So that's people tell that Niti Aayog has many indices that they can list about. And the whole objective of that is to look at data and look at very granular data that you can measure, like the aspirational districts, one of the flagship program where every district submits their data on a monthly basis and based on which a competition is run and which happens. So there is a lot of data, but then people who are making the decision have to put in the habit of analyzing the data. And also I see Prashant here, I think tools like theirs make it very easy to consume the data. Often, otherwise you have to rely on a data expert to grasp the data. But when you use very user-friendly tools, I think that becomes a very important part. I think it becomes very easy to consume the data. Otherwise, digesting and consuming the data becomes the difficult part. I will stop here. Happy to take any further questions.
Absolutely. I mean, evidence-based policy making and looking at granular data is the way forward, and how the government of India has actually been placed a lot of data on the public website, and it is available for the citizen. It is really commendable. I would like to now move to Dr. Harshvardhan. Sir, as you are in the part of the hospitality, the hospital sector, the healthcare sector, absolutely. And there is a lot of patient data which is every day required and stored and analyzed. So how do you see this data consumption, and what are the new technologies and trends, how we are utilizing this kind of data for the betterment of the society and for the patient?
And it was good to listen to Mr. Anirudh, Mr. Jha, Mr. Avik. Though it is my first professional brush with them, I would request Mr. Ankush to please please share his the concern which I'm supposed to take a look at.
Yeah, so actually, sir, I was asking you as in the healthcare sector, if you could, as there is a lot of patients' data and a lot of data privacy and security measures are taken. So could you share your thoughts about the policy making with respect to data and some of the technologies that you are using, like AI or ML, being used in the healthcare sector?
Uh, as I could see, there are a couple of sub-components in the concern raised by you on this virtual platform. One was the immensity of data generation in the backdrop of the ongoing, rather unavailing trail, the COVID pandemic. Number two is how do we, in the governance or government, are going to effectively, fruitfully utilize that data. Third is, if at all, how the different technological tool advancements, be it AI or whatever, can be of some help. And last is, uh, what did we do or what all we are doing at our end in the government, being representing the healthcare sector, the public healthcare sector from SDPGI. The way I look at it would be would be like this. Uh, I mean, I think when I was in medical school at AIMS, New Delhi, at that point in time, I participated in debate that we are in an age that is decade back, wherein we are sitting uh, or we are witnessing a moment in time when there is data explosion. And when it was so during my uh, medical school days, and subsequently there was advent of Sam Pitroda, telecom revolution, then IT revolution, and whatnot, and that has led to tremendous quantum of data traveling across the virtual network around the clock all over the globe. With this with this technological milieu which we are cloaked with, we are breathing in that technological milieu wherein trillions and trillions of bits of data is traveling across this virtual network all over the globe from all possible corners, from all possible frame of references. With this background and coming to the context, the healthcare sector, precisely public, which I represent, public healthcare sector, we have ourselves seen, I mean, I have witnessed this growth and evolution as to uh, how it has changed uh, the who's and tenors of healthcare delivery across the globe in general, in our country in particular, in my institute obviously specifically. I could see that over the course of preceding few years, it has grown to that extent that now clinicians or doctors or healthcare providers are using many tools which are being used at different nodes or interfaces of decision making, decision support system, DSS. And then we have got technology, equipment, processes, and tools to interpret, and wherein the AI comes or neural network comes, many things are there. So it is it is advancing at such a rapid pace, which is actually changing the canvas and landscape of healthcare delivery slowly but substantively. More in the Western world, less in our country, but it's happening. And the day is not far off, wherein the decision making, the clinical decision making or managerial decision making in healthcare delivery would substantively, lean on these technological advancements, and we will be there for execution or for customization of the execution plan. Now, to narrow it down further, in times of COVID or during the interregnum of COVID, what all data that spilled on or spilled over the entire medical canvas of the entire country, it is rather little early. It will take some time for that data which has been acquired to process it, to analyze it, to draw meaningful conclusion, and to put it as feed forward for policy making, which can place us or government or the healthcare provider better suited, better attuned, more able for an uh, evidence-based management of epidemics, endemics, pandemics, or prosodemics. In that way, it will help us. The Central Bureau of Health Intelligence is the central repository of the entire healthcare database in the country's it's an autonomous body under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. And there are many other autonomous organizations who have got tremendous amount of data wherein they are still processing it and data is still trickling in. So in medical science, or for that matter, any branch of science, data acquisition, analysis, processing, and drawing meaningful conclusion, and then converting into a technology or some policy decision making, it takes some time. It will happen and will help us move forward, one step forward in our goal towards the collective good of the people.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable experiences from the time when the actual breakthrough in the technology sector happened. And it was a pleasure to hear your thoughts, and thank you. I would now like to move to Mr. Prashant Momaya. As you being the technology provider, and you on day-to-day basis, you deal with a lot of technological disruptions, some of the new age technologies and innovations. So you have a foresightness of seeing the trends. So could you give us a sense of what are the leading trends in the data analytics sector or the area, and how the new disruptive technologies are making new innovations in the different sectors?
Sure, and it has been such a pleasure listening to all these diverse points of view. And if I just go back and run a common thread through this, there's a couple of large trends that happened, right? An unprecedented event happened. It subjected all our systems, right? All our systems, whether IT, non-IT processes, to a strain that they were not designed for. The fundamental result of that was everybody became very tactical about stuff, right? Speed and agility became important because you did not have a model that predicted where COVID would be tomorrow, or where my supply chain would be tomorrow, or where my customers' demand will be tomorrow, right? All those broke down. So people became very tactical. So the first trend that we saw in this last 1 year is the whole breakdown of processes around how people work with data and do business, right? So which included, how procurement processes change, how you interact with customers change, all that changed. There is one estimate that, a decade worth of digitization happened in the last 12 months. Literally saying that, hey, because there is no other way to do business, there is no other way to interact with your stakeholders. So that was one very big trend that happened, and it will be a boon going forward because there is a certain foundation that has been put in place. The second thing that happened is, and the government has always been very, they collect data from everywhere, internal data, external data, they have their own transactional data, they're collecting data from other agencies. The same thing happened with, whether the public sector companies or the private sector companies, your reliance on external data, right? Nobody had a COVID pandemic data set within their boundaries. They relied on something. So there is an increasing trend towards, people talked about social media data forever and stuff like that, but this really gave the impetus that I need data from the external world within my system to make better decisions. Which allowed, for example, Tableau set up something called a COVID data hub, which we made it very easy for people to access COVID data at the most granular level from anywhere in the world. So if whether you were in India, abroad, anywhere, you could get the trusted data source to work with that data. The next thing that happened was trust on the data, right? People were saying, you have WhatsApp and you have social media everywhere, you have different varieties of data coming up. So, for example, the most trusted source for, you would see on there is typically not the government websites. While they would point to the government websites, you would see others like the COVID India org site, which is, crowdsourced. There was a lot of crowdsourcing of this data so that the public could actually make sense of that data in a much better way than, for example, the government was able to present it, right? There were people who was able to take exactly the same data and explain it better to people. So for example, whether it's flatten the curve graphic or, the R, factor and stuff like that, they were able to explain that data out. So we are seeing, if I can call that trend, there's a little bit of a data literacy trend where people are saying that, okay, data is really important. I need to understand and be able to work with data. So these are the major trends. And then I would just like to add what Dr. Sarkar said is easy agile tools, because if you look at a lot of projects that happen around data, they would be, typical, you would do a waterfall cycle around projects and it would take you 6 months to deliver the report or 3 months. You didn't have that time. I want the data yesterday, right? I want the data right now in real time. So you saw a lot of these platforms being adopted. For example, Tableau was used to run a lot of COVID war rooms across the country. And that sort of provided that agility to be confident with doing analysis really fast. So these are the sort of underlying trends. And, as the good doctor said earlier, it will take us a little bit of time to realize what the true impact of that is.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your views and how crowdsourcing of data has led to the data literacy, which is phenomenal. And I would now like to ask to everyone, if any one of you can share your views on the use of AI and ML in your industry or in your sector, and giving some of the examples where you were involved in or your organization was involved in, and what are the major challenges when it comes to data-driven governance? It will probably be the last question of the conference. So anyone?
Hi, I will take that one. Thank you, panelist. There was a nice insight actually in a different way, because smart city and working on only COVID operations and then a little bit of the standard, projects. It is a different. Jha sir has mentioned about the supply chain. Sarkar sir had mentioned, touched base on that particular one of data analytics. Prashant, doctor has shared a nice experience of using in data. Obviously, data is the new gold, or maybe it's whatever oil, what we can say, but so it's going to be precious. In particularly Pune Smart City, what we are doing is we have affiliated to MoHUA's initiative of integrated, the data exchange program. So Indian Urban Data Exchange. So it's going to be a repository with we are working with Indian Institute of Science, where we have from Pune City we have contributed for 851 data sets. So it's a huge data which is city generating. And rightly said, uh, government is not just the data creator, but it is a aggregator. And lot of data is coming down to government, where all these new technologies, as we have used some tools which are Tableau and Hadoop and all those, which actually gives you some related data, which we can actually have the predictions done. Similar kind of things which we can use by AI, ML, using those algorithms and machine learning, where the systems can be more powerful in determining the, or maybe into decision making zone. So there will be a lot of say, like example, like we can enable some cameras and sensors, so we can actually enforce the law in terms of say, like red light violation. Probably we can have a triple seat person. Similar way, we have developed one, we have adopted one this software which is working on the similar technology. So it detects the masks, whether the masks have been worn or not, or the social distancing is maintained or not. So these kind of applications are going to, obviously there is no limit to it. So these are the simple applications which we can actually have these new technologies adopted, and obviously data is there, so we can put up those algorithms and go ahead. So we will have a better future, definitely, in the terms of regulations at least.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
so
Thank you so
I
much.
just want to add one thing, Ankush, because Pune was one of the smart cities, because I used to work very closely with the chief knowledge officer of Pune, who was the last person. And when I was at NITI Aayog, we worked very closely with conducting one of the initial hackathons with Pune Smart City. And they are one of the forerunners in conducting hackathon and doing that. So now what has happened is that MoHUA, the Ministry of the Smart City Office, has now taken their model, and with the help of Tata Trust, they are building a city data alliance. So each city, smart city, is now getting into a city data alliance. So they are finding out, like say 800, so there were smart people in Pune. So they figured out what are these 800 data sets are. But it is not that obvious. Finding out that there is a data set that exists and this can be of social good and benefit, and kisko uthana and what to not to pick up, that is not so obvious. So there is a structured program that these people are going on. Every smart city is having a city data officer, and all the smart cities are now participating in the exercise now as they're going on. So once the alliances are formed, so alliances are very simple. Like say the smart city has access to all the police complaint, all the health incidents happening in the hospital. It is very simple, getting access to multiple data sets, and then how can you mash up those data sets using a tool like say Tableau, because Prashant is here, and then you can just show the magic there. So once you can get something very simple, then I think the what you are asking about, this artificial intelligence, machine learning application, they will evolve over time. Once you have this data and you can mash them up. So I think that is a structured program going on there, and it is really good that the way the program is not only Pune who has shown us the way, but all the smart cities will have that. And this is a very good thing that is happening. So just wanted to tell the audience about it.
Absolutely, it's wonderful to see.
Adding further to this, I think in this industry, like during this pandemic, people have explored this AI, ML, and all Industry 4.0 initiatives. And in our industry also, we have engaged some of the consultants and also students, NIT students there we have engaged, and they are also doing something. And so we are basically collaborating with other people. And many small solutions which has come is a wonderful. We never thought of that this can reduce our defects or maybe some maintenance issues and other things. And this data analytics and video analytics, particularly we have made use of for reducing our defects and maybe increasing our productivity throughputs and in our rolling in lines. And also, we have angles, bars, and all these things. This is made bundles. The bundle is done in this online system. Now, how many pieces are there? That was one requirement by our marketing organizations, and they used to do some physical counting sort of thing. So that again has been done through this machine learning sort of thing with video analytics. So a lot of projects we have identified almost 30 projects, and out of that 12 are low hanging fruits, and that we are already working on that. So I mean, this is the beginning, as Anirudh was telling, and Dr. Sir was also telling. So there's a foundation done, and people are thinking a lot in this direction. How we can make a use of this knowledge resource, AI, ML, and data analytics, and IoT, and all those things. And it will go a long way. And definitely, this COVID has given us an opportunity to introspect and further join hands with the big organizations, and also that this like we are talking over webinar, learning has become so easy. So a lot many webinars are happening here and there, and people are ready to share their experience and technology around. So I think this is a long way to go, and thank you all. That was great learning, great industry experience with all of you. And I hope.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Yeah, due to paucity of time, I would quickly like to move to Dr. Harshvardhan, sir. Could you share some of your thoughts on the data governance and data-driven strategies in the last 1.5 years, some new innovations, and how data was used in an appropriate manner in the sector that you represent?
This virtual platform is an evidence itself. Otherwise, you would have been discussing live face-to-face. It has made such an inroad. And it was either way moving on in this direction, but COVID augmented this pace.
And it is also very climate friendly.
Yeah. I can see Prashant is enjoying probably the Himalayan range. Anyway, what I mean to say, when you look at it from a very broader perspective, every time the human civilization, when it look at grows, so it is always impacted by the time frame or time span during which it is manifesting. The way India was during independence, the day India was in pre-independence, the way India was in proto-historical prehistory period. So now the way India is in the info age. So we grow up with imprints of the time we are growing within. So since we all are thoroughly cloaked, imbued, soaked within this IT revolution, which has probably has touched almost every dimension of life that we are indulged in. COVID did hasten this, and we at PGI in particular, and in healthcare in general, we are using and will continue to use it at much higher pace. And what all changed in last 1 and 2 years is that it came as a setback, sort of onslaught, or a sort of sudden roadblock when the lockdown was imposed on 22nd and 3rd of April, something like that, whatever. But gradually, the way human civilization, it never has accepted it. I mean, and it always has accepted the challenge, and we have always found a way through the challenges. So gradually, we started finding a way out. So we at PGI, as the PGIMS, we shifted our focus to COVID care. Obviously, that was the need of the hour that we had to, and the non-COVID care was given a complete a backseat. And but after some span of time, probably I believe April, May, June, 2.5 or 3 months, or 2.5 or 1.5 or 2, 8 to 10 to 12 weeks, we did set up the entire EOPD, ECCS, E-Clinical Care Support System. So over the span of time, we attuned ourselves in such a way as to where we could continue to deliver the healthcare to good extent by using or harnessing all these tools and technologies. So, I mean, it goes without saying. That's why I told you that this virtual platform itself, when I'm supposed to talk on this utility and how did we use, is a proof and self-evident. It's self-evident, and it will continue to evolve because every generation grows up with imprints of the time frame within which it grows.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. Uh, now we are pretty much at the end of our conference and the panel discussion. I would like to, before going ahead with that, I would like to ask Mr. Momaya if you could share some of the key takeaways from this entire discussion and deliberation, and because a lot of challenges were shared and new innovations and where exactly we could focus on in the government policy. We have the think tanks from different very key industry from India. So as a technology provider, it's pertinent to ask your takeaways and what do you think about this discussion that we had.
Sure. And as Dr. Harshvardhan says, I can travel every day, sir, without moving from my place, just by changing the background. So that is the world that we live in. And you know, there is so much wealth of knowledge on this planet, right? So whether it is, you know, the whole supply chain and using, for example, students to look at projects at SAIL, which is amazing, right? You got people to do stuff. And they learned along the way as well, or you know, the smart city, Dr. Sarkar talking about, you know, the whole data initiatives that are driving a lot of change, and plus on the healthcare side, I think there again, right, there's a few common threads that run across, and if I could sort of, you know, pull on those, there is a lot of obviously potential, right? There's lots of work happening, there's lots of effort happening on that front to realize that potential. In some places we have had quick wins, some of the wins will, you know, take a longer term. I mean, take the example of, you know, the Pune smart city. I mean, in 36 hours you had a war room ready. That is an achievement by itself, right? We are known as an inefficient, slow country, but look at how we are challenging it in the real world, right? Saying that, oh, India mein aisa hota hai. Nahin, India mein aisa hota hai, right? It is what we are doing or what we have shown the world what it is. Look at, you know, for example, all the stuff that happened around the Arogya Setu app and what's happening around, you know, the amount of digital channels that have been created are just, you know, intensifying and really helping the citizens out. The second thing is the impact on frontline workers, right? Technology always impacted, you know, people who sat in nice offices. Now that technology, as you know, with the mobile phones, with that mobility technology, with the 4G penetration, with the whole initiative, it is getting to the node, right, where data and analytics and services are available on a device to literally, you know, even a safai karmachari, right? You are able to actually say that this place is dirty, or you know, there is a risk at this place. People are able to do that. So that transformation has occurred. The next one is also this whole thing of building these data sets, right? And as Dr. Sarkar said, clearly that need to be cataloged, inventoried, searched. That is critical to drive the next phase of innovation, because we all know next phase of innovation everywhere around the world is coming out of data, right? Data is telling us move in this direction, don't move in that direction, and things like that. So that effort, and you know, while there is this whole data.gov and things like that, it has to go to the next level in order to be, you know, really usable across, right? Those data silos have to be broken down, and I know there's a lot of effort going on there. And finally, I think putting together, you know, the partnerships between the government entities, the PSUs, and the private sector, a lot of co-innovation has happened during this time. And that has actually, you know, so there are lots of places. For example, we have a free platform called Tableau Public, and literally, there are lots of cities who use that for their citizen-facing dashboards. And we supported those efforts to make sure everything was right and they are able to deliver information to their citizens. So we are seeing, that partnership act like never before. And for once, people were not fighting over RFPs and stuff like that. And people were like, hey, let's get over this period. This is more important. So I think the greater good prevailed. So I'm really excited about it.
Absolutely, the greater good prevails. So we are at the last leg of our engaging panel discussion on data-driven governance in Normal. I would like to thank all the panelists for taking your valuable time out and participating in this wonderful panel discussion. Thank you so much. We look forward to host you again. Thank you.